Chapter 24. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming, and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you.
Hello and welcome. This is Paul Sandhu on a beautiful summer day in July 2021. Okay, and talking about the end times, about the time of the tribulation, the time of the beginning of sorrows, and of course, the topic that a lot of people have been speaking about. The internet is filled with it, about the Antichrist, the mark of the beast, the vaccines, the mark of the beast, etc., etc. As far as the vaccines are concerned, I have talked about this many, many times, going back even into last year, even before any of these vaccines were even available. That the vaccine is not the mark of the beast. However, the way it is being pushed, it is certainly a precursor to the time. Because what it does is it is conditioning people into accepting authority, false authority, and doing what they are ordered, so that when that time comes, even now the stage is being set where a lot of people are being told that, unless they take the vaccine, they're not going to be able to go to their jobs and, not have any kind of employment, and essentially not be able to participate in a lot of activities such as going to restaurants or, concerts, etc., which to me is not a big deal, but that certainly is what how life works on this earth, and a lot of people will be shut out of it. And what that is setting the stage for the time when it'll be mandated. It's quite. I still think it's quite a ways ahead of us yet. When the time of the mark of the beast comes, and nobody will be able to buy or sell. So at this moment in time, it is not telling that you can't buy or sell, that you can't, order groceries, even from, if you can't go to the store, you can still order them from Amazon and all that. And that all will one day come to an end. Okay, but the vaccine, basically, you can understand that the Bible tells us clearly that, the mark will be on the right hand or on the forehead. And last time I checked, nobody was getting vaccines in their right hands or in their foreheads, okay? So no, the vaccine is not the mark of the beast. It has a lot of the characteristics that the mark will have, and especially as to what people will be allowed to do or not do. And that is setting the stage, getting people conditioned that, the state, so-called state, has the authority to order you to do these things. And by the time the next generation in which the mark of the beast will come, they will already have been programmed to believing in false authority. So that's my stance on this vaccine issue. Now, as far as the deceptions are concerned, there's going to be a great deal of deception, and that is one of the deceptions, okay? When Jesus was talking in Matthew 24, for example, and the disciples asked him the signs, what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world, okay? He before he started giving them any signs, he told them, don't be deceived, okay? And what he was teaching them was that, okay, he says, listen, I'm going to give you the signs, and you follow these signs and these signs only. And when you look for it, because we've been told to watch and pray, but we need to know, what are we going to watch for and what are we going to pray for? And the most of the Christian world, so-called, they've been kept. They are being kept so deceived, I guess, by their church leaders and by these people who call themselves prophecy teachers and gurus, etc. They are so deceived by them that they don't look at the signs that Jesus gave us. Okay, he already gave us the signs, so that's what we should be looking for. Now, I've already done many videos on this as of at the beginning of the year. I had posted some videos as to what to expect in this year, in 2021. And what, I just want to recap some of those, quickly recap, and then I'm going to repost that video at the end of this introduction, so you can again go through it. And essentially, the deception is that people are looking for the things like the Antichrist, the mark of the beast, etc. When Jesus told us that the first thing that's going to happen will be the beginning of sorrows. And the sorrows, my friend, they are only four things that we look for. The four areas where these sorrows are going to be experienced in this world are going to be, one, of course, is called war. Nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, which is like internal problems in countries. Such as, for example, it's happening all over the world right now. But like in Tunisia, for example, the government has been dismissed, etc. So in many other places like Nigeria, South Africa, you have people that are basically on the brink of civil war or some other major problems. A lot of the European countries right now, there's a lot of pushback against these mandated vaccines and such. So there's a lot of turmoil, economic problems. And this is worldwide. In Latin America, it is nowhere is the world the second horse that is going to begin riding. We are told they will take peace from the earth and people will kill one another. So, we are definitely in that, we are headed towards those days. So the four areas that we need to look for is wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Nation against nation just means one group of people against another. It doesn't necessarily mean wars between countries. Kingdom against kingdom means wars between countries. So, all these things we look for. Then it talks about there shall be what? Pestilences, which are diseases. Now, of course, we don't need to look for that. That's already been in the news for the past year and a half. And again, whether real, hoax, whatever, there are going to be real diseases that are going to come because the Bible prophesies they're going to come. There are going to be millions and millions and millions of people that are going to die of something. Whether it's something in the vaccine that is going to kill them or not, I don't know. But, something real is coming that is going to be very, very fatal and, is going to kill and maim and sicken a lot of people. And then the third area, of course, is in the climate. This is the reason why the climate has suddenly become such a big story, especially with the Biden administration. Climate change is our, is the topic of our times, etc., etc. Because you see, Satan understands prophecy. He is an active participant in the fulfillment of prophecy. God uses him, and in turn, Satan uses these human puppets like presidents, prime ministers, big business people like Gates or Fauci, etc. They are used by Satan to fulfill the purposes that God has purposed. Okay, so God is the commander, Satan is a puppet, and then he has his human puppets. Okay, so now Satan was given the playbook of prophecy a long time ago, 2,000 years ago. He's read that book of Revelation quite well, and he has been given dates and timelines by God that at certain times, at this year, this time, there's going to be major climate disasters that are going to start hitting the world as my judgment, gathers and intensifies. It gathers, like avalanche coming down a hill. It gathers speed and it intensifies. That, let's say July or August or whatever, October or maybe January next year or something, there has to be like major climate disasters. So in order that people don't turn to God and understand that all these things are happening as a judgment from God, Satan has cover stories that are ready. So he has, of course, had this cover story of climate change ready for like 50, 60, 100 years now. Okay? But especially since the 1970s, so like for the last 50 years or so, this climate change story has been planted in the media and movies and everything, environmental disasters and such, which is mostly a lie. The earth is not running out of resources. The earth is not overpopulated. Let's just think of this here, that, there are more than humans. There are billions of humans, but there are trillions, probably trillions of animals in this earth. Okay? God feeds them all. Okay? Are they running out of food? Are they running out of water? Are they running out of air? No. So all these are lies. The earth could probably support 100 times more people on this, maybe 1,000 times more, and there would be enough food and water and air for everybody. Okay, it is because our resources are not distributed because the greed and evil of man that uses phony evil systems like money and exchange rates, etc., to control and enslave certain populations, that there are poverty and hunger in this world. Okay, not because God has not provided enough resources. So that's climate change. So I would look for some major, and this year has been very, very catastrophic as far as floods, storms, forest fires, etc. are concerned, more than 2020. Okay, already, and we're only halfway through the year. So that's the area that things are happening. Like I told you, that's what we look for. Don't look for the Antichrist. You want the biggest deception? It's the Antichrist deception, because it's not the time yet. understand Bible prophecy, understand the times, understand what to watch for and pray for, okay? Watch and pray what you're going to be watching and praying for. That's what we do. So that's what we look. So the wars, rumors of wars, pestilences, and again, like it's not just COVID-19 or something. You watch some other diseases are going to come our way, and some of them are going to be very real. As I told you, as these problems for war and climate disasters and hunger and famine increases, there are always diseases that go along with those conditions, and such as cholera, dysentery, and all these kind of other problems that arise, and they are very, very, very fatal. A lot of people die under those conditions anyhow, and they're not necessarily that it's an infectious disease. It is a disease that is caused by circumstances and conditions that are very conducive to, producing disease. And then the fourth area, of course, in the area of food, famines, hunger, that is going to kill a lot of people. And when Jesus told us, that these are the signs that you watch for, these are the beginning of sorrows, go back, read Matthew 24:7, read the first four seals. There's no mention of Antichrist in any of those. There's no mention of the mark of the beast in any of those. Not yet, because the time is not yet. So you are jumping ahead. People are keeping you, Satan is using a lot of these prophecy teachers to deceive you. Keep it simple, my friends. Don't wander off from the simplicity that is in Christ, as the Bible tells us. The word of God is plain to them that understands, that has understanding that God has given us. Jesus, when he told them, don't be deceived. What was the purpose of that? And he repeated that warning 3 times in Matthew 24 alone, is because he told you, hey, I'm giving you these signs. Watch for these signs first. If the sorrows have not even gone through the beginning stage, why are you jumping ahead to the time of the Antichrist? That is not yet. Okay? So yes, these circumstances that are being created, these are, of course, we all have to pray. And we have to watch and pray. And we have to come closer to God. And Joel, it tells us, as this day of the Lord comes, God says, it could be right in the middle of the day of the Lord when the whole world is falling all apart all around us. And he says, turn to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your hearts and not your garments. And when we do that, if we do that now, before this mark and all these other problems come, if we do it now, even before these forced vaccinations or something like that happens, if we do that now, we turn to God now. When that day comes, we will know what to do. Okay, we will know how God will, guide us, and He will either, make it take us away from those traps and snares of the devil, or He will take us out of this world. He will do that. Okay, so we don't need to sit down and think day and night. Oh, what will I do when the forced vaccinations come or something like that? Pray. Humble yourself before the mighty hand of God. He says, when in 1 Peter chapter 5, it tells, humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due time. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. But before you resist the devil, you have to humble yourself under the mighty hand of God. That's what we do. Like, our battle with the devil is won by us humbling ourselves before God, by us worshiping God. To worship God means to fall down and to bow down to Him, to acknowledge that all authority and power belong and come from Him, that He is always in control, not the devil, not man, not the president, not the prime minister, not the pope, not the queen, not Bill Gates, not any of the other so-called powerful people in this world. They are nothing. They are less than cockroaches. They are going to be used by God, and one day He's going to crush them. Like when I was growing up in India, we used to have cockroaches are quite common there in hot countries. And, you come sometimes you come in the middle of the night or something, grab a glass of water, you turn on the light, and, there'll be cockroaches all over. And but as soon as the light came on, they ran. And therefore, the way you make this devil cockroaches run is by going to the light, but turning on the light inside of you, by being always, studying and watching and praying. And these deceptions, stay away from them. stay away from everything, oh, this is what's happening, that's what's happening. Go back to your Bible, study it. Yes, we can see that these judgments are beginning to intensify. Therefore means that all we need to do is our prayers and our petitions to God, they need to be our thanksgiving to him. Okay, we don't need to keep telling him, God, what am I going to do? He already knows what what he wants to use you to do. Okay, he already knows that. He called you, and if he called you, don't you think he has a plan and a purpose for you? Of course he does. Okay? So you know what? Quit worrying about all these other things. Quit watching, like men's heart failing them for fear for seeing the things that are coming on the earth. Yes, but that's men that don't believe in God. That's people that don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. Those are the ones that are the fearful ones. Okay? Let them be full of fear. We praise God and we thank God. When Jesus said, when you see these things happening, what did he say? Okay, go hide in a cave or a den somewhere? No, he said, look out, for your redemption draws near. That is the time when you lift up your hands and you praise him and you give thanks to him. Like I said, the word worship has nothing to do with music or to, jumping up and down like people think it is. To worship means to bow down. That you're acknowledging that there is somebody greater and higher than you. And that's whose power that you are controlled by, not the powers of this world. No, not the powers that are in heavenly places. You resist the devil by humbling yourself under the mighty hand of God. That's what you do. Okay, so our thoughts, God said you will keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you. You got to develop trust in God. That whatever you are faced with, whether it's mandatory vaccines or it's the mark of the beast, when the mark of the beast time comes, people tell us there are going to be many people who won't accept it and they'll choose to be killed. And all these circumstances, maybe, like even now, before the mark, there's going to be certain, because Jesus said, they'll lay hand upon you, and maybe, they use this vaccine issue to lay hands upon people or whatever. Maybe they will. Okay? So what? God already told you some of us are going to be thrown into prison and many are going to be killed, etc. It's already been foretold, right? So if it already told us, then that's what we look for. Anyhow, I'm going to, end this here because I have that video, I already did it, so you can watch it. But again, like my advice to you, if you don't want to be deceived, then have a playbook ready, prophecy playbook as to what God has given us. And he told us that you look for the beginning of sorrows first. That's it. And those things, they have nothing to do with the mark of the beast. They have nothing to do with the Antichrist. They have nothing to do with wormwood or the locusts or anything coming out of the earth. They have everything to do with, peace being taken from the earth, which means, you can look for the zombie apocalypse, meaning not like, the Walking Dead type of zombies, but zombies that people whose mind has been so contaminated and they've been made so fearful that, when time comes that they are running out of food or something, then they're going to turn upon each other and they're going to kill each other in great numbers, okay? That we can look for. That's peace being taken from the earth. Hunger, famine, all there. Earthquakes meaning something which is seismos, which is just shaking not just of the earth, shaking of the heavens where the storms come from, shaking of the seas where the waters and tsunamis come from. That's what that word means. It's a shaking of, and God not say that he's going to shake not the earth only, but also the heavens, but he begins with the earth. So all these things are going to be felt on the earth first of all, okay? So you can summarize it in war, weather, disease, and famine. Those four things. Just look for those and you won't be deceived. Stop looking for anything else. Stop watching like YouTube videos all day long. Study the Bible. Study it day and night. Pray day and night. Worship day and night. Humble yourself before God day and night. You can sing to God, which is different than, worship. It is like, your heart is filled with thanksgiving and rejoicing and, lifting him up because you have a relationship with your creator, with your maker who loves you. You understand that and you love him back. That's a relationship where two parties are in love with each other And that's our relationship with God, okay? That we are in love with each other. God loves me. He's already shown and proven to me. Now I love him back. And then whatever else is, anybody else that's around us or surrounding us or whatever, when the time comes that we have to deal with those situations, God will have us prepared and ready to deal with them. That, my friends, is my encouragement, my exhortation to you. Stop being misled. Stop being deceived. Just go by what the Bible tells us. So we are not yet through the beginning of sorrows. So stop looking for Antichrist and the beasts or aliens coming from outer space and all that kind of stuff. No. Right now, there's going to be enough problems coming our way, and they already are, that, once this economy, one day the plug is going to be pulled on it, which is, banks, etc., cyber attacks, these kind of things are all, again, cyber attacks is something which has been in the news this year, have they not? Which I told you before in that video that I'm posting now. This video is already posted on the 7-year tribulation deception, and you can watch it. But again, you should watch it, that these are the signs that you look for, okay? Don't look for like something which, don't put the cart before the horse. All right, cyber attacks, again, all the day, every day there's something, there's a cyber attack. Oh, and there was a cyber attack on the Colonial Pipeline, so gas shut down. Oh, there's a cyber attack on the food, on the meat, plants, so meat shuts down. Now there's a cyber attack in a big port in South Africa, so shipping shuts down. All these things are going to, the big one's going to be when they shut the electrical grid down, okay, at least for a while, maybe for a few days, for a month, whatever, it's going to happen, in the world as we know it, then it's already ended. But everything that we consider to be the world, that we have power, we have running water, we have, food in the grocery stores, all that stuff is coming to an end. Okay? So these things are going to happen first. These economic problems, these cyber attacks, these wars, these, people going ape on each other, hunger just growing like so bad that, you might have people in certain areas where people are just going to really, as you see in the movies, they're going to come and break down people's doors and, just looking for food. All that stuff is already happening in some parts of the world, and it's going to spread. That, my friend, is the beginning of sorrows. Thank you. This is Paul Sandhu. First of all, I would like to point out that, many people in my comments to videos, etc., they ask some questions. That probably the best way to reach me with your questions, comments, etc., is to, yes, of course, you should be posting comments and on YouTube videos. But if you have like some direct specific questions, might be better to email me. And my email address is psandhu23@icloud.com. My website is paulsandhu.ca. I'm also on Facebook, Teacher of the Word, and I have another Facebook page called Flat Earth Truths, as well as another YouTube channel. You're watching this on my Teacher of the Word channel, but I have another one called the Flat Earth Truths as well. Okay, so those are all the places. I put these links in the description, and therefore, you can save them and you can contact me through these website and email. And today I am continuing my series on the topic of the tribulation, and particularly emphasizing that the 7-year tribulation time frame that is generally taught is a deception. So this will be a part 3 in that series, and today I would like to essentially go through the time identified by Jesus in Matthew 24:8. And he said, all these are the beginning of sorrows. So I wanted to explain what, what these sorrows are, and what signs we need to look for to understand when the sorrows have begun and when they will be coming to an end. Not the whole sorrows, not the whole time of the tribulation, but just the beginning part as recorded in Matthew 24 up until verse 8. So the word tribulation, as used by the Lord Jesus in Matthew 24:21 twice, and in Matthew 24:29, has the following meanings. Okay, it means to feel extreme pressure. It means to be pressed. as by a heavy weight. It means to be squeezed as in a vice. It means to be in straits or to be constricted as in a straitjacket. In regards to that word squeezed, you've been hearing lately about the short squeezes that have been going on in the stock market, which I believe has some significance to the times that we live in and to Bible prophecy, but I will talk about that later. To be in straits or to be constricted as in a straitjacket. When you have go to these mental institutions, etc., a lot of people that are considered to be a danger to themselves or to others, they put these straight jackets on them so they can't, move. That's what tribulation means, to have that feeling. It means affliction. It means trouble. It means distress. It means fear. It means anguish. It means pain. It means sorrow. It means persecution, and it means oppression. So all these are the meanings of this word, and they tell us clearly, all the meanings of this word tell us clearly that the whole world is going to suffer greatly in the time of the tribulation. Even in the early stages, the destructive forces that will be exerted on the world will make people feel as if their heads were being squeezed in a vice. The word stress that so many people experience in their daily life implies pressure that is being exerted on their head, on their minds, and on their hearts. That's where we get that term, the phrase a heavy heart from. This is a form of tribulation that people experience on a daily basis. Now imagine that people's daily stress of life is multiplied by a factor of 10 or more. That would be the kind of pressure that just the beginning of sorrows, the beginning of the tribulation will bring to the world, as the world just begins to enter the very last of its last days. Any way we look at it, the Lord Jesus did not mince words. He told us plainly that the end of the world was going to come someday. That's written throughout the Bible. And that this time will bring more pain and suffering than at any other time in history, since man was formed and placed in the Garden of Eden. So, people that teach that Matthew 24 verse 3, which speaks directly of the end of the world, does not mean the end of the world, but just the end of an age, are not reading the same Bible that I am reading. Does God not tell us throughout His holy word that one day He will destroy not just this world, but also the earth, the heavens, and even the heaven of God, and make everything new again? Does Revelation 21 not speak about New Jerusalem, the new heaven coming down from God upon the new earth? So let no man deceive you. This world was meant to come to an end even before God made the world. That has been His plan all along. The only question is whether it is possible for us to know the time when it will begin to end. Can we know that the end is coming before it comes? The answer to those questions is yes. We can know and we should know, which is the only way for us not to be deceived, as the Lord Jesus warned us time after time not to be deceived. In auto races like the Indy 500, sometimes a caution flag is waved to warn drivers to slow down because of potential danger ahead due to an accident. When it comes to the end of the world Bible prophecies, we should also be very cautious. We need to keep our eyes on the immediate dangers ahead. We should be looking for the caution flags, not the flag that is waved when the race comes to an end. So we should be looking at the yellow flag of caution, not the checkered flag that is going to say that the race has ended, okay? The point is that we should be looking for what lies straight ahead of us, not for the coming of the Antichrist, and certainly not for the second coming of the Lord Jesus. These events are still a long time away. I will take a close look at Matthew chapter 24 verses 1 through 8 and at Revelation chapter 6 1 through 8, which, in my belief, is the time identified as the beginning of sorrows in the Bible. Now in Matthew is quite clear that, up until verse 8, Jesus said these are the beginning of sorrows, so everything that came before that. But I believe that Revelation chapter 6 verses 1 through 8, which is the opening of the first four seals, the writing of the four so-called horsemen of the apocalypse, that those are parallel events to Matthew chapter 24, verse 7 and 6 and 7, and therefore they are the beginning of sorrows. Not all of the seals, not all of chapter 6, but just the first 4 seals. At this time in early 2021, all we need to be watching for is the confirmation that the sorrows have begun or are close to their beginning, while keeping in mind Jesus' warning that the beginning of sorrows will just be the beginning, the end will not be yet. Even after the beginning of sorrows stage comes to an end, there will yet be so much more that must happen before the sign of the Son of Man is seen in the heavens, that the warnings of Jesus not to be deceived into believing that he's hiding around the corner will become even more significant. Even if the world has been devastated by the catastrophes that will strike in the middle of sorrow stage, that'll follow the beginning stage, obviously, called the trumpet stage, it will still not be the end. However, what is clear from Scripture is that there will be a pause before the next stage begins. Okay, so there are going to be stages, and there are going to be pauses between each stage. So we can, so God has made it very clear that, okay, so you see these events, then comes a stop. That means it's not the end, that I'm just getting ready to launch the next stage. Okay. For example, in Revelation 8:1, we read of silence in heaven for the space of half an hour. Now, when this pause comes, this silence comes, when the world kind of quiets down a bit after seeing much catastrophic destruction and loss of life, there will be many that will rise up during these pauses and deceive people that the end has come. When Jesus warned us not to be deceived, the end will not come until the sign of the Son of Man is seen in the heavens. So we look for that sign up in the sky. We don't look for it on the ground, which means, like we don't look for an Antichrist, and we certainly don't look for a Christ on the ground. And trust me, there's going to be many, many, many multitudes that will be looking for Christ on the ground, not up in the sky where he told us to look for him. Now, I also believe that as we get closer to the time of the fulfillment of the end of the world prophecies, and yes, it is the end of the world. The world, as I repeat, was meant to always come to an end. This world was never a permanent world in the plans of God, so it is going to come to an end. So as these prophecies are fulfilled, we will begin to get a clearer picture of what is going to happen and how it will happen. At this time in early 2021, I believe we do have somewhat of a clear picture coming into view of the time just of the beginning of sorrows, when the first 4 seals will have been opened and the 4 horses of the apocalypse will begin to ride. So at this time, it is impossible to know exactly what will happen after the beginning of sorrows. For example, when the trumpets begin to be blown, or even when the 6th seal is opened, because as I said, the sorrows, the beginning of sorrows, I believe, are only the first 4 seals. So even when the 6th seal is opened, which is a transitory seal, which will begin the process of the very transformation of the cosmos of God, it will be the beginning of the time when God will begin to shake, not just the earth, but also the heavens. Again, I emphasize that since we are still a few years away from that time, it is not even worth speculating as to how exactly those prophecies will be fulfilled. Just as an aside, in Revelation chapter 6, verse 13, we read, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. Okay, this scripture baffles a lot of people because we have been lied to so much in this world that, the science and NASA tell us the stars are like, gigantic balls of fire, many, many times bigger than the sun, etc. And whereas, in fact, the Bible tells us the stars are just lights that are embedded in the firmament of heaven, just like you have lights in your ceiling. And the truth is revealed in Hollywood movies more than it is in schools or in in news programs. Okay, so here's a little clip from that movie, The Truman Show, which tells you that the stars, they show this clip where this light comes falling out of the sky, and the light is written Sirius Canis 9, Canis Major or something, that, it's the name, that it is a star. Okay, but you can clearly see that it's just a little light, and that's how it is. Stars are little compared to the Earth. So when they do fall down, yeah, of course they'll do some damage, but it's not going to be like, they're going to destroy the Earth or burn it up and all that. No, 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 no. The stars that we see in the sky are very small lights in reality. Nothing like, what NASA and all these lying scientists tell us.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yeah. Morning, Truman.
Morning, Spencer. Hey, Pluto. Oh, no. Get down.
He won't hurt you.
Get down. Yeah, I know. It's just me.
Come on, Pluto.
Here's a news flash just then. An aircraft in trouble began shedding parts as it flew over Sea Haven just a few moments ago. Oh. Wow. Luckily no one was hurt. But hey, how do you feel today?
In order to understand the timeline of events that are sure to overtake the world, and may have already begun to do so since early 2020, let us again look at the three major stages in which God's judgments will befall the world and what will transpire in each one of these stages. We can read in Jeremiah 21:5, and I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even in anger and in fury and in great wrath. Based on this scripture and other scriptures, it becomes clear that God's judgment comes in stages. It begins with warnings, sometimes for decades, if not hundreds of years, for our God is merciful and is long-suffering, and would rather see people repent and turn to him than to judge and to destroy them. For example, God made a covenant with Abraham to give the land of Canaan to his descendants, but it did not happen until 400 years later, for that was the amount of time God had given to the Amorites to repent and to give up their extremely wicked and evil practices that included burning children in the fires to their gods like Moloch. But since man rarely repents and turns to God, God's judgment begins to come in stages, slowly at first, as the birth pangs of a woman, but intensify with subsequent stages as man continues to reject God and refuses to repent. Okay? This is why the beginning of sorrows is going to be probably the slowest and longest stage, because judgment will begin slowly. Okay, so the three stages of God's judgment are: number one, the time of God's anger. And based on Matthew 24 and the book of Revelation, this would be the time of the beginning of sorrows, the opening of the first four seals. Time of God's furies, time of God's fury would be the middle of sorrows, which equates to the events from the fifth seal and into the judgments of the trumpets, and I would say even right into the time of the two witnesses and of the Antichrist. And last but not least is the time of God's great wrath. Look at that words, great wrath. And this would be the time of the end of sorrows, when we will be very close to the end of the tribulation, when basically this world will lie completely in ruins. Some 90% of the people will already have died. And this is the time of the wild judgments and the judgment of Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, okay? So this is at the very, very end will come the time of God's great wrath. It is before then, people will still, you could still be able to repent and turn to him. And as I said before, it won't happen on a national scale or on a worldwide scale, but individuals can still do so. But I believe once we get to the time of God's wrath, then it's literally game over for the human race. Okay, in this portion of the study on the 7-year tribulation deception, I will detail what we can expect to see happening in the very first stage, which is the time of God's anger. It is obvious that the world must have begun to provoke God, to grieve him at his heart so much that his anger, which develops very slowly, has been aroused to such a degree that he has begun his judgment upon the world, as in the days of Noah. Now let no man blame God for sending judgment as in the days of Noah. God gave the world back then 120 years to repent, and so too in the present time. God has been sending warnings for centuries, even for millennia, that this time would come, except man repented and turned to God. I believe the time for the world to turn to God is now behind us, but there is still time for individuals to repent, to call upon God, to believe in Christ Jesus, and to be saved. In this study, I will focus on Matthew chapter 24, verses 1 through 8, which is the time Jesus identified as the beginning of sorrows, and we'll also study the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verses 1 through 8, which are the opening of the first 4 seals. So let's carefully and prayerfully study the details that Jesus himself gave us in the Gospels, especially in Matthew chapter 24 and in the book of Revelation, to understand the events that will transpire over the course of the first stage of the judgment of God, called the beginning of sorrows. This is the time of God's anger. So let's begin in Matthew chapter 24, verse 6. And it tells us, "You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." In Matthew 24:6, we are told of wars and rumors of wars. We are told that we will hear them, not necessarily be participating in these wars. Wars do not always mean bombs and explosives. We understand from Revelation chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, when the first seal is opened, that the white horse rider is sent forth conquering and to conquer. Although conquest is generally understood as implying a military conquest, in the context of the end of the world prophecies, conquest includes many other aspects of life on earth that must also be destroyed as the world comes to an end. So we read in Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." I believe the white horse, which by the way is not Jesus, foreshadows all of the destruction that comes through conquest and will set the stage by which the world will be conquered in all aspects of life on earth, not just militarily, but economically, through manufactured food shortages and diseases, and also through mega so-called natural disasters, which may not be natural at all. Lastly, wars between nations will break out. There will be domestic unrest, and social order breakdown will greatly intensify as joblessness grows, people run out of money and food. Namely, the world will be plunged into a state of chaos. All these are the events that must transpire in order for the prophesied end of the world to begin to happen. Okay? Will bring the prophesied sorrows to the world, will bring the tribulation that we know is coming, such has not been seen since the world began. Since we believe that the world has already entered, at least I believe, that the world has already entered the time of the beginning of sorrows, the birth pangs have begun. And these birth pangs will result in the birth of the millennial kingdom, millennial reign of the Lord Jesus Christ, that they have begun slowly, as birth pangs do, but are now set to begin to intensify. And I believe they will in 2021. So far, the white horse, that we believe has been writing since the beginning of March 2020 has been setting up the stage for massive disruptions to the normal functioning of the world and as to the world. Okay, first time since Noah, the days of Noah, that this has happened to the normal functioning of the world, and has set in motion events that will bring the destruction prophesied to be visited upon this evil world, but transforming the world so greatly that it will become impossible for the world to ever return to the conditions thought of as normal that existed at the end of 2019. So if people still are delusional that we are going back to 2019, then I repeat that you are delusional. Okay, and the conditions that existed at the end of 2019 and in early 2020. What has happened so far from early 2020 to the beginning of 2021? What has happened? Okay, let me rephrase that. What has happened so far from early 2020 to the beginning of 2021 that leads us to conclude that the sorrows have not only begun, but will greatly increase in intensity and in speed for the rest of 2021 and into 2022. Amongst so-called prophecy teachers, we hardly ever hear of problems such as the ones that I'm going to list as being the signs of the end of the world, because people generally confuse the word world with the word earth. Although the end of the world will see a great deal of destruction of the earth itself, like the islands being moved out of their places, and the coastal areas are probably all going to sink. You have seen numerous movies about California sinking into the ocean and such things. All those things are a very distinct possibility, okay? So it does mean the end of the world will see a great deal of destruction of the earth itself, but the end of the world means much more than just the destruction of the natural earth. World means that which has been built by man on the earth, cities, towns, villages. These constitute the world, but also infrastructure such as the electrical grid, the water supply systems, communications networks, etc., which are indispensable for life on earth today, are also included in the definition of the word world according to the Bible. And most importantly, okay, last but not least, most importantly, the word world means economy. Money, banking, trade, commerce, merchandising, and such activities that people call making a living define life in this world, and by extension literally mean the world itself. The only time, pay attention here, the only time that Jesus got physically angry was when he drove out the money changers, the bankers, from the temple, saying that they had made it into a den of thieves. This whole world is a den of thieves right now because of banking, because of central banks, because of the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and because of commercial banks, especially major international banks like you see in Wall Street, etc., or in the city of London, or in Geneva, Switzerland. This whole world is a den of thieves right now, and therefore it is not surprising that the first stage of God's judgment upon the world, the time of his anger, will begin with blow after blow after blow to the world economy. Okay, like Jesus' blows upon the tables of the money changers. Therefore, catchphrases such as Great Reset. You should just do a YouTube search on Great Reset. We spoke about these things years ago, and it is now everywhere. Great Reset will be heard more and more. Catchphrases such as universal basic income. As I've already told you, if you want to understand what universal basic income really means, watch the movie Soylent Green. Watch the condition of those people in New York City in 2022, as was shown in that movie. That is the meaning of universal basic income. They were all being paid and fed by the government, but how they lived, you would like to go and see. That's what's coming, okay? That's what it means, because God has commanded that the economy of this world should be destroyed because he is angry, because the whole world is a den of thieves right now. So what sign should we look for that will confirm the world, as we have known it in the past, is being torn down stone by stone, brick by brick, just like the temple in Jerusalem? So here's a short video from the World Economic Forum called The Great Reset. And basically what they're telling you that the whole world has been reset. Okay, they claim that they're the ones in charge and they're doing it because they're going to make a better world out of it. But the truth is that God has pulled the plug on the world because the world is so abominable. You have no idea. Most people have no idea what an abomination the world and man that lives on the world has become in the eyes of God. So time has come of his anger, and it is soon to be followed by his fury and his great wrath. So these so-called leaders of the world, and like from the World Economic Forum, or from the banking systems, or from corporate leaders, or even political leaders like our Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada, they are going to tell people, oh, this is utopia that we are bringing in. Everybody's going to live like gods, and nobody's going to have to work, and everything's going to be great. But what's coming is dystopia. Here, watch this.
New York City, in the year 2022. Nothing runs anymore. Nothing works. But the people are the same. And the people will do anything to get what they need.
This is the police.
What they need most is Soylent Green.
The supply of Soylent Green has been exhausted. Return to your home.
Basically, everything in this movie is coming. Okay, like people cramped into tight living spaces. Everybody gets some kind of, whoever's going to survive will be given an income called the universal basic income, but that is just a few credits. Everything is going digital. There's another one instead. In addition to the Great Reset, watch out for coming digital currencies. They're coming. Okay. So people are given a few credits, and then they are allowed to buy a few items of food, okay? And the food is not food. It is like what they're pushing on us, some things like Beyond Meat and all that kind of stuff. It is basically, something completely not natural, okay? That's what happens. That's what that means with this Great Reset. That is what the plan is. That people are not allowed to go into rural areas. They're not allowed to go. They basically have this, what is happening today with all these travel restrictions. People are being, pushed into smaller and smaller areas. And all these things are going to happen, okay? They're not happening next year, okay? It says 2022, but it won't be happening in 2022. But somewhere along the line, something like this will come to pass, where the world that we thought existed would be finished. It wouldn't be like a world where people are going to go to restaurants, go to ball games, have hot dogs and apple pie. Those days are gone. And what's coming are the days of Soylent Green. These digital credits, which are soon going to come, which are going to be used to introduce the system of universal basic income. Okay, we're talking economics here, how the world works. Okay, all this is being transformed. Basically, what you exist today is you go to work, you get a paycheck, you go to the store, you buy goods. All that is coming to an end. Okay, so you are going to be told that, okay, this is how much income you have. It's going to be basic. Keep in mind that word basic. And then what you can buy with it. However, the income is not going to be so much that you're going to be able to go buy a car, buy a house, buy clothes, buy all that. No, basically it'll be enough for subsistence, and subsistence not unlike, you can eat like a chicken meal every day. Like Fred FDR said, there'll be chicken in every pot. Well, no, there'll be no chickens in any pots anymore, okay? So this is going to be something called Soylent. And if you guys think that Soylent is fiction, I'm going to play a news clip for you. Soylent is an abbreviation of the word soya and lentils. Okay, so something is going to be, they say, is made from natural product. But anyhow, be that as it may. But I did want to point out about this system of digital money that is coming. This is not the mark of the beast. People are going to say, oh, this is the mark of the beast. This is the mark of the beast, because you have to have digital credits to be able to buy this stuff. Okay? No, this is a precursor to the mark of the beast, which is going to come. Okay? So these things are going to happen in stages. God tells us that they will. So this is just the beginning of the unwinding of the world economy, which means this is the unwinding, the great reset of the world, which is going to take many more years yet. So don't expect all this to be over within 7 years. I told you many, many times, the 7-year tribulation is a lie. It is going to be close to 40 years. 40 is a very significant number. The Israelites wandered in the desert for 40 years. Jesus fasted for 40 days. Jesus also was in the earth for 40 days after his resurrection. Okay? So you'll see the number 40 all the time. David, Solomon, Saul, the first kings of Egypt, for Israel, they all ruled for 40 years. 40 is a number that is very significant, and I believe in regards to end of the world prophecies, but Jesus said they're going to last one generation, they are going to be close to 40 years. But I just wanted to make you aware that don't be fooled into believing that if the digital currency is introduced, which is going to be very soon, that it is going to mean that's the mark of the beast. No, it is a system of control. Yes, absolutely. But it is not going to be an absolute system at this point in time, because there are going to be some other major problems that are also going to get in the way, where this absolute totalitarian system, which is going to be introduced at the time of the Antichrist, will not be here yet, because the Antichrist will not be here yet.
So, Brad, what is for dinner? How about a substance that replaces food, giving you all the calories and nutrients you need? What in the world is this all about? Jonathan Series live in Atlanta. Jonathan, what is it about? Good morning.
Hi, Bill. It's called Soylent, and it was created by Rob Reinhardt, a Georgia Tech graduate who ultimately sees his product as a solution for world hunger. Because his product ships as a powder, it's easy to transport and can go for a long time before it starts spoiling. Reinhardt says because half of the world's food ends up going to waste, hunger on a global level is not really about lack of resources. Listen.
Once we really turn this into an engineering and logistics problem, we can solve those, and we can. I really think that we can get the costs lower and lower, and to the point where no one would really have to worry about their supply for food, which would be a massive benefit to humanity.
All these agendas of the Great Reset, which literally means the biblical end of the world, okay? They are all going to be promoted as benefits for humanity. Half the world's food goes to waste, which is absolute baloney, okay? They just come out and say these lies right through their teeth, and people don't even question them, okay? It doesn't matter. Yes, I'm sure there's some food that goes to waste, but if this is going to solve world hunger, they've been solving world hunger for at least my whole lifetime. And world hunger, as the Bible tells us, so whatever you're watching in the news, expect the opposite to be the truth. So that means that world hunger is going to be greatly increased. And these products like Soylent, they are not intended for the poor peoples of the third world countries. They are intended for you. By the way, anybody that's familiar with that movie Soylent Green, or who has studied this like I have, to call this product that they are now pushing Soylent, it really is, Orwellian. It's beyond Orwellian. It is diabolical. Okay, enjoy your meats and your foods and your fish and fresh fruits and produce and everything that you can get right now, because the days are coming. The days are coming when you're not going to have. You're not even going to be able to go to the store and buy it. Probably the stores won't even exist anymore. Those days are coming. All right, so what signs should we be looking for that are going to tell us that the sorrows have begun and what we can expect is going to be coming next? First and foremost, the white horse has set in motion. Okay, the white horse, which we believe began riding in March of 2020, has set in motion events that are leading to the destruction of the world economy, at least in its present form. The world economy till recently allowed for individual entrepreneurship and individual ownership of businesses and property. The so-called pandemic of 2020 has fatally wounded the world economy. By design, I believe, in the next few years, most, if all not, all small businesses will be gone, and people having no jobs will be given UBI, which will make them slaves to a small minority that will control and own everything. Like the economic forum, World Economic Forum says, you will own nothing and you'll be happy. No, I won't be happy. Okay, but I would like to see them be happy without owning anything. Not that we put value on things in this world because our treasures are laid up in heaven, but while we are living, no man should be able to dictate to you that you can own this or you can eat this and you can eat that. That should not. They have no right to do that. Okay. UBI at best will mean subsistence level income that may afford the majority one meal a day. These plans, developed over decades if not longer, are no longer conspiracy theories, but are being openly promoted by political leaders, business leaders, and even by religious leaders such as the Pope. Yeah, he's very actively working with the World Economic Forum to bring this about. But of course, he's got the best, he wishes the best for humanity. Look for continued slowdown in economic activity, more and more businesses being shut down. And as people cry out for governments to do something, look for promises of UBI, especially in Western countries. Now, something happened last week, which was this company called GameStop that was all over the news. And nothing gets into the media, especially on national media and international media, that is not done by design. So this GameStop saga, I believe the name tells us a lot. That this whole thing with these markets, stock markets, financial markets, monetary markets, everything is a game. Okay, it's a game it's a casino basically, and it's the house that always wins. So the game is rigged, but the game itself has to come to an end sometime. So I think what happened with this company called GameStop is a signal that this game is going to stop. And for more than anything else, for this year, I would look for something that is going to be what they call a black swan economic event. We don't know exactly what it is going to be, but it's going to send a shock through the whole world economic system that is not being seen ever, I would think, not even in the days of the Great Depression. So that would be one very major sign to look out for, that we are now deep into the sorrows. They have already begun. By the way, when I spoke about the Great Reset being promoted by the World Economic Forum, it is also going to have other names, okay? For example, you can see this on Biden-Harris's webpage. It says, Build Back Better. Okay, listen for this here. This is going to be in the news a lot. It won't be called the Great Reset anymore, because people have found out what the Great Reset means, and they are now going to use phrases such as build back better. Joe Biden believes to his core that there's no greater economic engine in the world than the hard work and ingenuity of the American people. Nobody has more respect for the working women and men who get up every day to build and sustain this country, or more confidence that they can meet the challenges we face. Yeah, these kind of lies are going to be assaulting you from every direction. Anyhow, so what signs should we be looking for that will tell us that we are in the beginning of sorrows? Okay, in my estimation, the one word that will really define this time, this stage of God's judgment, the time of God's anger, the beginning of sorrows, the beginning of the tribulation, is going to be the word chaos. So we will see, as far as the economy is concerned, we will see chaos in world markets, extreme economic volatility, such as seen in the markets last week. Okay, this is only going to increase, and there is also going to be one or more black swan events, something like on the scale of Lehman Brothers in 2008, but bigger. Okay, that is really going to, I think, deal a death blow to the present system of money and markets that we have, because it has to go away. Okay? Before this world ends, something new has to be brought in, and they've already spoken about it. Like I said, the great economic reset, the build back better and all that, because they know that this system is on its way out, and there's something that is going to be some shock, some, nuclear option will be executed to destroy it once and forever. Then we will see chaos in society, riots, looting, cities burning, things like what we saw in the Black Lives Matters, etc. last year. That was only a preview, and this is going to increase on a much greater scale than we have seen. It reminds me of the 1970s when they used to have all these in Italy, etc. A lot of fire bombs going off, such things happening. I see them happening in just about every major city across the West and across the world. And then it'll be followed by wars, like what we call World War III. I don't think that's coming like very soon, as not in the next year or two. I would place it somewhere like 4 or 5 years from now, but it could be sooner. I could be wrong. Chaos in health, pandemic waves 3, 4, and more. Okay, more diseases, and there could be other diseases. If you think this pandemic thing is over, you're wrong. It is going to keep on giving for a long time. It's the gift that keeps on giving. But other diseases may also rise, such as cholera, etc., especially in third world countries, and they will kill a lot of people, possibly in the millions. And then we will see chaos in food growth, food distribution. You will start hearing words such as food insecurity, even famines will be shown and broadcast over the media. Then there will be chaos in natural disaster events, chaos that will be caused by mega earthquakes, floods, storms, that we have not seen the scale of. I don't think we've ever seen them. So last year we saw some pretty big ones, and even in this year there have been some big ones already, but I think bigger ones are on their way. And these disasters will take place in diverse places, just as Jesus warned. Lastly, another word of caution. What we will not see will be the Antichrist. We will not see the mark of the beast. Not this decade, and probably not the next decade. Okay? So we have to be sober-minded, and we have to go by what the Bible teaches. I don't care how many, false prophets are out there, telling you that the vaccine is the mark of the beast, or this or that. It is not, because these things that I've told you, they have to happen first. That's what the Bible teaches us. Now, as I have said repeatedly, it is my belief that the white horse represents mainly economic destruction, which leads to all the other problems, leads to war, leads to famines, leads to diseases, because those things always follow, like when society breaks down, when wars come, when there is social disorder. All these are a byproduct of economic failure. Okay, so if the white horse is already riding and it's setting up the situation or setting up the conditions that is going to bring wars, etc., let's talk about the second horse a little bit, which I believe is kind of at the gates, but it is not riding all out at the moment. Okay, so the red horse, and the second seat is open. The red horse begins to ride, and it rides for only one purpose, which is to kill. Whereas the white horse has been conquering through deception and lies, okay, destroying the world economy in the guise of a pandemic, casting billions into extreme poverty, suffering extreme hunger, and reeling from diseases, real or manufactured. The red horse rider rides, first of all, to take peace from the earth. Okay, note the word earth in Revelation 6:4. It says that it will take peace from the earth. Okay, so it is not applicable to one area or one region or one country. It is applicable to the whole world that sits upon the earth. In Revelation 6:4, it means that peace will be gone from across the face of the whole earth. And it reminds me of that scripture from Luke 21:35, where Jesus said, "It shall come upon a snare upon all them that dwell upon the face of the whole earth." Okay, So these end time prophecies in Matthew, in Luke, in Mark, in Revelation, they apply to the whole world that sits upon the whole earth, not to one nation or one race, or mean it does not mean the end of an age. Yes, it means that the age is going to end, but the age that's going to end is the age of the present economy, and what kind of economy we will have when the Lord Jesus Christ comes and sets up his kingdom upon the earth. We can be sure it will not be an economy based upon money. Okay. Now, when it tells us that peace will be gone from across the face of the whole earth, let us not forget what happened in the days of Noah. A lot of people teach about the days of Noah, that the Nephilim are coming, that the hybrids are coming, that, this and that creature is coming. But what does the Bible tell us was going on in the days of Noah? Let's look at it. Okay, so although many teach that the Nephilim are coming, hybrids are coming, the Bible tells us that in those days, violence filled the earth. Okay, did I tell you that the word is chaos? Okay, and what does chaos bring? Brings violence, my friends. Violence filled the earth, and when peace will have been taken from the earth and people are madly killing each other, is that not exactly what was happening in the days of Noah? In Genesis 6:11 we read, the earth was also corrupted before God, and the earth was filled with violence. It doesn't say it was filled with Nephilims or hybrids or, six-headed men or something like that. No. It tells us that the earth was filled with violence, and it tells us that man, not the devils, not fallen angels, not hybrids, man had corrupted God's way upon the earth. So get ready. The zombie apocalypse will soon overrun this world. Okay, and I don't mean zombies as in Hollywood movies, okay? But the zombie apocalypse is very real. But what I mean when I use the word zombies is something as was seen in Rwanda, I believe in 1994, where we are told, I don't know how much of this is truth, because you cannot believe anything that's reported in the mainstream media. But we are told that in just 100 days in 1994, about 800,000 people were slaughtered in Rwanda by ethnic Hutu extremists. Have you been hearing that word extremism? White extremists, all that kind of stuff that's in the news lately? Yeah. And one day the tap is going to be opened. People are really going to turn into zombies, and they're going to turn upon each other, and they're going to kill each other in numbers that'll shock you, okay? They were targeting members of the minority Tutsi community as well as the political opponents. This story has no basis in reality. It's possible that 800,000 people died, or maybe maybe 100,000 died. We don't know how many, but let's say some people died, okay? And it wasn't because of this one community turned against another. There were other reasons that I don't want to get into it here, but it did have something to do with electronic warfare, where one group was targeted and they were turned against another, okay, by means that were entirely not organic, or what they're reporting here and BBC. They were targeting members of the minority Tutsi community as well as the political opponents, irrespective of their ethnic origin. Now, a lot of people talk about 5G and stuff. That's another thing which I don't know anything about, okay? I'm not going to say that. But there is going to be electronic targeting of whole groups, that much is for sure, which is going to turn one group against another all over the world. Okay? And they call it racial violence. They'll call it, black against white, or black against Hispanic and such things, or Hindu against Muslim, and you name it. But it will go on. And when it happens, then we'll have Rwandas all over the earth, okay? So Revelation 6:4 needs to be studied closely, because we learn what to expect as the red horse, who is even now at the gate, begins to ride. Okay, this is the second horse that we are looking for. And once this happens, once this chaos just erupts across the world, you can say, okay, yes, the tribulation has begun. It did begin in March 2020. We have a time frame of roughly 38 years for this to go on, which means that it will not be over until about 2058. And anybody tells you different, you can believe it, but you will be deceived. Revelation 6:4, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Since we believe that the white horse has been riding since March of 2020 and the red horse will ride next, let us look closely at the mission of the red horse. Just some of the words, just as an aside, okay, just as an aside. The white horse reminds me of White House, okay? And incidentally, Joe Biden was wearing both a shirt with a white horse and a red horse on it. Not the same time. Like one time he was wearing a shirt with a white horse on it, and the next time he was wearing a shirt with a red horse on it. Are these like some kind of signs? I think they are. It means that the white horse has already been riding, and now soon we will see the red horse begin to ride. Joe Biden is definitely going to be a war president. Watch. Since we believe the white horse has been riding since March of 2020 and the red horse will ride next, let us look at the mission of the red horse. Okay, the color red is the color of Mars. Okay, the red planet they call it. Okay, it's not a planet, but that's a different story. The color red is the color of Mars, the god of war in Roman mythology. This horse signifies war in many different forms. And wars is not just people shooting each other with guns. We have economic wars. We have psychological wars. We have all kinds of wars that are going on all the time in our world. Okay, so all these wars are targeting people with one purpose. The thief comes not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. Steal the peace of the people, turn them against each other, and to destroy them. The horse is given power. See, these are the words that are used in Revelation 6:4. Power, and there's only one purpose of that power. What is it? That they should kill one another. So this power will be wielded to destroy life by the millions. Okay? So far, we have not seen it. Therefore, I am confident that this horse is not riding out. It may be just at the gate, ready to ride, but it is not riding in full speed at the moment. Like, when you have a race that the horse doesn't, when it gets towards the in a good jockey, he holds his horse back a little bit. So when they get to the finish line, that's just before the finish line, that's when he lets it go all out. Okay. So this horse is not riding all out at the moment, even if it is riding, which I don't think it is. Through his power, the red horse rider takes peace from the earth. This is what the Bible tells us, okay? And the word take in this verse, in Revelation 6:4, means to remove by force. The force that will be used to violently remove peace from the earth is the force of division. Okay, people will be divided. You keep hearing that? The nation is divided. The blacks are now against the whites, and the whites are against the blacks. Oh. And that's all the media does. That's all the politicians do. They divide people. They don't unite them. They keep talking about it's time for unity. Like, Joe Biden gets up and say, but everything that they do, don't look at what they say. Don't pay attention to what they say. Look at what they do. Everything, Obama, you name it, they all work actively. CNN, CNBC, whatever, all the media works to cause division. So it's the force of division. People will be divided. And we don't mean not just one nation. Okay, the division is not just going to be one nation against another, but also race against race, ethnicity against ethnicity, down to friends and family members turning against each other. Did Jesus not say that the enemies of a man shall they be of his own household? All right. It's here. I already see people turning against each other because of this alleged pandemic. Oh, you're not wearing a mask. You can't do this. You got to get a vaccine. And people are all fighting amongst each other. As far as the vaccine is concerned, I tell you, it's not the mark of the beast. But I'm not planning on taking it, and I wouldn't. It's up to you to decide whether it's going to is it going to have some adverse health effects. Probably. So I wouldn't be. I'm not going to take it for that purpose. But it's an individual decision that everybody has to make. But we are told in the Bible that when the mark of the beast comes, people are going to be given a choice, take or dead. I don't think that's going to happen with the vaccine, my friends. No. And this vaccine story is going to disappear in a few months, okay? Because there's going to be some much bigger problems coming. So that's what's happening, though. Family members, friends, everybody's turning against each other because they are being divided. Either you're with me or you're against me. Now that division is becoming very, very clear, where you're going to be either a believer in God and the Bible, or you're going to be his enemy. We have seen a preview of these kind of divisions throughout 2020. You know, your BLM, MAGA protests, etc., for example. But like the saying goes, we ain't seen nothing yet. When I spoke of the zombie apocalypse headed our way, it is going to be far more real than what most people are prepared for. Okay? We will see some of it in 2021. I'm sure of that. But it will not be the worst of it yet. That is still to come, which will come next year or maybe the year after or the year after. Okay, this is going on for quite some time yet. So dig yourselves in. This is a marathon. It is not a sprint that is going to be over in 7 years. So what else do we read in Revelation 6:4? It says to kill one another. Well, that's quite self-explanatory. As opposed to the white horse, which has been riding to set up conditions that will bring about a lot of destruction of life and property in the years to come. The red horse has only one mission. It is to kill. That's what the Bible says. To kill one another. Okay? This is a killer horse. To destroy human and animal life on earth, as well as a lot of property, and the earth herself will be damaged a great deal. Last but not least, the red horse rider is given a great or a mega sword. The two major wars of the 20th century were called Great Wars, and later were called World Wars. So it is not surprising that as the world ends, we will again see great wars. The word great in Revelation 6:4 is the Greek word megas, from which the English word mega, sounds like maga, has been transliterated into English. So great wars involving the USA, NATO countries, Russia, China, India, Iran, Israel, and other nations are coming. They are coming. They're not here yet, but they are coming. Most likely in this decade. I would think probably towards the middle of this decade, not this year or next year. I'm quite sure of that, but they will be coming in our way soon, probably by 2024, 25, somewhere in that time frame. Okay? Most likely in this decade, maybe even in the first half of the 2020s, but I don't expect these wars to begin in 2021. Okay? Incidentally, President Putin, my friend Femi, he sent me this quote by President Putin. He recently warned of all-out war, and I will quote from his speech at the virtual Davos summit last month in January of 2021. Russian President Vladimir Putin, speaking at the World Economic Forum's virtual Davos agenda on January 7, 2021, offered a grim prediction and noted that the current era shows parallels to the 1920s and 1930s before the catastrophic World War II, which, as I said, was a great war. What will be given to the rider on the red horse? A great sword. Okay, that represents great war. It doesn't represent a small war. It represents a great war or wars. Okay. Nowadays, such a heated conflict is not possible. I hope, Putin added. He didn't say that it is not going to happen. He thinks it's not possible, but he hopes it's not possible. Okay. But I like to reiterate that the situation, these are the words of Putin, but I like to reiterate that the situation might develop unpredictably and uncontrollably if we sit on our hands doing nothing to avoid it. There's a possibility that we might experience an actual collapse in global development that might result in a fight of all against all. Look at that word, in a fight of all against all, because of what? Because of what? Okay? Because the Chinese have slanted eyes and the Americans are white or something? No, nothing to do with that. He said because of global development, economics. Anybody that teaches Bible prophecy without bringing the economy of the world into prophecy and how it relates to the end of the world, he doesn't know anything about Bible prophecy, okay? So this is exactly what Putin is saying, that we might experience an actual collapse in global development that might result in a fight of all against all. Such a prospect, he said, would result in a grim dystopia. Did we see dystopia in Soylent Green? Our dystopia is coming. Okay, dystopia is not just coming, I believe it's already here. So the job of the white horse rider, riding for almost a year, has been busy setting up all these wars that are not just military wars, although those are sure to come, but he has brought rumors that are fast becoming fact of economic wars, currency wars, food wars, pestilence disease wars, weather wars, and last but not least, of police and military wars. Do you see those are protests that are going on in Russia? They're going on in Europe. They're going on all over the world. Okay? That's right. People are turning against each other, and soon it won't be just harmless protests. There will be some bloodshed, and I believe a lot of it. All this has happened in the course of less than a year since the white horse began to ride. It seems like that in 2020 and so far in 2021, what we have witnessed is merely the setting up of the world stage on which all these wars will be waged against by man, by man for the most part. Okay, there are some other elements that are certainly going to come into play, but not just yet, I think, like the alien card, for example, or whatever. That's going to be something like that. That is also going to be, thrown into the mix. But not just yet. I believe that's probably in the 2030s or something that we are looking at that happening. And though it is certain that at some point in the near future there will be aliens from outer space card that will also be played, I personally believe that is still a few years into the future. In conclusion, the biblical signs that we should be looking for in early 2021 are economy slowing down more than in 2020. That's the number one sign. More people unemployed, more debt, more straightness, more monetary pressure, more financial stress in people's lives and in the markets. Phrases like Great Reset, Build Back Better, Universal Basic Income, Guaranteed Employment, etc. will be heard more and more because the World Economic Forum wants to build a better world. Better world, oh yeah, sure, Carl Schwab. Let's see what you are going to be building. It's not going to be building, it's going to be destroying what has already been built. Number two, food shortages and or food price inflation. Look for bread lines to grow. Have you seen a lot of bread lines in 2020? In the United States, I'm not even talking about any of the other poor countries. Yeah, watch for these bread lines to grow longer and longer. Like now, they were saying sometimes, these bread lines stretch back for like 5, 6, 7 miles. I wouldn't be surprised if they start stretching back for like 5, 10, 12, 15 miles, okay? Look for bread lines to grow. More people, even in Western countries, to go dumpster diving looking for food. Yeah, I saw that in my city. I'm in downtown. I saw the other day a guy was dumpster diving. Okay, it's going to be more and more. Looking for food, and even food-related robberies and violence will increase. People are not going to go into stores, to rob for money. They're going to go and rob food. Okay. Also look for a greater and greater push to eliminate meats and push people towards beyond meat diets, which are foods that are not natural. We don't even know what they are, if they are even food at all. Okay. And then number three, third and fourth waves of the current pandemic to be declared, which means that this is not going away despite promises of miracle vaccines and cures, but variants, previously called mutations, which they don't like to use anymore because too many people knew that this was the game plan, so they call them variants now, okay? Will magically keep appearing and rendering useless the vaccines that have been the conduit through which governments have channeled billions to the pharma industry. There may be even reports of old disease outbreaks, old diseases breaking out, such as that of cholera in Haiti after the 2010 earthquake. Words such as mega, great, of biblical, this is number 4. Words such as mega, great, of biblical proportions will be used for natural disasters, such as major earthquakes. And these earthquakes, they have struck the world all the time. But now, watch, as God's anger builds, they're going to start striking heavily populated areas like major cities. Okay? And storms of previously unseen ferocity and magnitude. And the significant difference that will prove that the world has entered the time of sorrows and of tribulation will be that these natural disasters, so-called, will come faster and faster, like birth pangs, and keep increasing in intensity so that the world will not have had time to recover from one disaster before the next one hits. You know how it happens, like in Haiti, they had a big earthquake in 2010, and then, many years go by and another major one, like a huge one, has not happened, and they have had time to rebuild, or they're supposed to have rebuilt, for which money, Bill Clinton and Georgie Daddy Bush had collected billions of dollars. But of course, Haiti got a few million, but the rest, well, anyways, didn't go towards rebuilding. But, you get the point though, right? That between, like in Hurricane Andrew or something hitting Florida, or Katrina, there was time to rebuild. But these disasters that are going to be a part of the beginning of sorrows, not even the latter stages, they are going to come so frequently and so fast that I don't think that the world is going to have time to recover. These insurance companies are going to go belly up, and then people will know that this ain't, just anything usual that is going on. This truly is the end of the world. Jesus did not mention, now notice something, okay? So these are the kind of signs we look for. Because in Matthew 24:7, it's quite clear, nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. Jesus said these are the beginning of sorrows. He mentioned nothing. Jesus did not mention the Antichrist, the abomination of desolation, as being part of the beginning of sorrows, and warned that as the disasters, catastrophes, pestilences, and wars begin to assault the world, these would be the beginning of sorrows. But he also warned that the end is not yet. If you already are almost 1 year into the beginning of sorrows, and still the stage is being set by the white horse for the next horse to ride, then should we expect that the entire tribulation period will be over in just 6 years or so? No, I do not expect that at all. I'm quite sure that it's going to last much longer than that. I'm 100% sure, as I've taught in my previous videos on the tribulation, that it will take more than 7 years just to get through the beginning of sorrows. From the first 4 seals, Revelation chapter 6, verse 1 through verse 8, Matthew chapter 24, verse 1 through verse 8. Even that, if those events, see, wars don't just happen. The economy, wars always have economic reasons. Right now, there's a lot going on in this world. Okay, especially the Canadian Prime Minister, one of our former Prime Ministers, who was Prime Minister in the 2008 crisis, and he participated in all the quantitative easing and all these kind of other programs that have really brought us where we are today. He warned that, the world is facing a debt crisis recently. Now he's not Prime Minister, so he can say these things, but the current Prime Minister isn't allowed to say that. So anyhow, he said, the world is facing a debt crisis like it has never seen before. That he said that, the big question is the USA, how long will the world continue to lend money to the USA at 0%? Basically, he was bringing into question the status of the US dollar, okay? Because the dollar goes, the USA goes, okay? And this is something which people don't realize, like how big a connection it is to the end of the world. Because the US dollar is the USA. That's what it is. And the US dollar is maintained by the US military. But there is coming a time very soon, and it already is here, where the world is going to reject the dollar. And they already have plans in place for what will replace it. But it is going to bring chaos, especially to the US, like you have never seen before. And that, my friends, is going to fulfill a lot of these prophecies. But again, it takes time. It takes time. Not going to happen just in the next 7 years. Okay? This is the reason why, like Jesus in Matthew 24, verses 1 to 8, and in the book of Revelation chapter 6, 1 to 8, I'm not looking for any signs yet of the beast or the mark of the beast. The vaccines, like I repeatedly tell you, are not the mark of the beast, because the beast is not even here yet. Okay? And won't be here for many more years. And if you say he is, then, we are not reading the same Bible. We are not studying the same Bible prophecies. And you can believe what you want to. but it is not based on my King James Bible. Okay, whether you have to take the vaccine or not from a health perspective is something you need to research and decide for yourself. I'm not planning on taking it, but I'm also sure that it has nothing to do with the mark of the beast, for the time has not yet come. So let's not put the cart before the horse, okay? Let's rather look for the red horse to begin riding, okay? He is going to ride and he's going to bring chaos to the world. Look for empty store shelves. Look for ghost towns where businesses used to thrive. And something like a Hollywood apocalyptic movie. Look for that first. Look for signs, such signs for the end of the world. Not the Nephilim running around your neighborhood. That's not going to happen. I believe there will be a major economic shock, possibly cyber attack related. One thing I haven't mentioned in here, something also that is going to be playing a very significant part in the end of the world, are going to be power outages. I believe they're built slowly too. Like, they call them rolling blackouts and such, because that was one of the major themes in that movie Soylent Green as well. Power, which we take for granted, wasn't around much. Water, running water. These are the kind of things. Don't count on having your cell phones working all the time, for you to be on the internet all the time, downloading at 100 gigabytes per second or something. Those days are going to be, definitely there's going to be some major problems in all those areas. And this is what's called cyber attacks. And the psychological operations have already been set up. Oh, there's been a major cyber attack on the banks. Oh, there's been a major cyber attack on this and that company. Oh, there's a coming terrorist cyber attack on the electrical grid. Okay, all these stories have been floated because these things are going to come. Okay, it may be a major outage or outages, even an alleged terrorist attack on water supplies or on communications networks, possibly even on transportation systems that will negatively affect life in many major cities or even nationally. And of course, the announcement of newer, deadlier variants of some truly mega natural disasters are very likely in 2021. If we see some or many of these events, then we can be sure that the sorrows have begun and will continue for many years until at least a quarter of the Earth's population will have died. At least a quarter. I think is going to be probably closer to like 30% or more. Maybe even 40% and closer to 50% that might die just in the time at the beginning of the sorrows. And then we will see a pause before we enter the next stage of God's judgment, which is the time of God's fury, which begins in Revelation chapter 8. I do not expect to see that time before 2030 or thereabouts, maybe even later than that. I have included a video I saw recently that captures on film some of these signs that are being seen across the world. And what we need to do as Christians is to turn to God with all our heart. Okay? Not turn our eyes on the world looking for the Antichrist, whose time will not come till very close to the end of the tribulation. Okay? So that's all, my friends. I believe I hopefully given you a very clear understanding of what the Bible teaches about the beginning of sorrows. Again, it's up to you to study and to understand these things for yourself. Or you can keep watching some sensational YouTube videos about Nephilims and hybrids and, alien invasions and all that kind of stuff. That's your choice as well. God's given you the time. You do whatever you want with it, okay? I love to study the Word of God and to share with you what I read in it. And I will continue to do that as long as I can. Thank you for listening. This is Paul Sandhu.
I actually got emails from Texas and New Mexico as well, where they are also seeing larger number of die-offs.
Since the beginning of September, dead birds have been found.
Really strange, literally birds dropping out of the sky.
Now, conservationists are sounding the alarm after thousands of dead seals have washed ashore on the coast of Namibia. They estimate more than 10,000 have died in recent weeks. The vast majority of them, say Ocean Conservation Namibia, are premature pups. The exact reason for the die-off at the seal colony at Pelican Point isn't fully clear.
Just the colony that we're dealing with, we're estimating probably in excess of 7,000 dead pups alone, and these are the premature pups, the tiny little aborted fetuses, if you wish. They and that's not counting the adults, the adult females, and other pups lying dead on the beaches too.
Almost every morning, Mohammed Ghazi takes his boat out to fish, but these days there's nothing to catch, and the serene surface of the water belies the toxic danger that lurks beneath. Thousands of dead fish washed up in this canal at the beginning of this month. 2 weeks on, remnants of what Mohammed says was an unprecedented environmental disaster.
2 months ago in late August, people in New Mexico noticed hundreds of migratory birds that have fallen dead right out of the sky. Within a few weeks, the numbers had expanded to thousands of birds across other states, including Colorado, Arizona, Texas, and Nebraska. Scientists have been struggling for an explanation as they look to protect birds from other threats.
Birds have been falling out of the sky and dying. We're talking thousands of them in the past few months.
A migration this year marked by a massive die-off across several western states. New Mexico was hard hit.
Say the numbers could be in the hundreds of thousands.
It was certainly something went wrong this year.
This is a very strange event.
Punjabi co-authored a study detailing a 30% decline of American birds in the last 5 decades due to things like habitat loss. From unprecedented forest fires across the West may also be a factor.
Hyderabad is drowning. The rain has been relentless in the South Indian city, and it's now claimed lives. In one deadly incident, floodwaters pushed a wall onto a house, which collapsed on impact. Other victims were swept away in raging currents.
Give us an idea of the scale of the flooding. We've seen the pictures, and yet Vietnam suffers monsoons every year. How is this different and why?
The scale of devastation is overwhelming. Days of heavy rain, floods, and mudslides in central Vietnam have swept away entire communities. Thousands have lost their homes.
These are considered to be one of the most worst and most affected floods and storm ever in many decades in Vietnam, and affecting life of millions of people.
Catastrophic scenes also in Cambodia. Deadly flash floods have hit the west of the country, prompting the evacuation of some 2,500 people. The military and police have been deployed to assist with the massive operation and hand out much-needed food to isolated communities. And this is the scene in neighboring Vietnam, where flooding has claimed the most casualties in the last week. Up to 1 million people have been impacted by the floods, some 200,000 homes are underwater, and there are fears the death toll could rise.
And the government warns things could get worse as Tropical Storm Sodell approaches. And there's already widespread flooding in the Philippines. Back in Vietnam, rescue teams are preparing for the worst, for what's already being described as the worst floods there in decades.
Critical danger in the west. Overnight, a new wildfire erupting in Colorado as more than 30 infernos burn across the west right now. Parts of Newport Beach are flooded tonight.
But nature found a way to remind us. In the Midwest, punishing 100-mile-an-hour winds. In the Southwest, a brutal succession of floods and droughts. On the coasts,
Delta is bearing down on the Louisiana Gulf Coast.
A freakish number of devastating hurricanes. And in our western states,
the combination of the high heat and dry brush makes for explosive fires.
Historic mega fires that sent a plume of ash and smoke all the way to the East Coast. More than 4 million acres have burned in California alone.
Now to the evacuations tonight. The wildfire emergency in the west. Red flag warnings across 6 states tonight. One fire in Colorado exploding in size overnight.
The 2 largest wildfires in that state's history, burning just 10 miles apart, and weather conditions this weekend are threatening to make things worse.
They have to go real slow. Like these firefighters, flanked by flames as they drive to safety.
You are a hero, my hero.
Tonight, the second largest wildfire in Colorado history could become the most massive the state has ever seen. It's already burned an area larger than the city of Chicago, and it might merge with an even bigger fire just a few miles away.
Locked in a desperate scramble to save lives while struggling to protect their own.
They need to get moving now.
That fire's coming over you.
The so-called East Troublesome Fire exploding, at times erupting at a rate of 6,000 acres an hour. That's nearly 80 football fields per minute.
High winds and dry conditions creating a perfect storm.
You can see behind me here, the fire is in the trees. The firefighters call this crowning. And when that happens in these conditions, the fire is virtually unstoppable.
I've never seen anything like what we experienced 2 nights ago.
Oh my God.
Forcing the evacuations of thousands, fast becoming the second largest fire in Colorado history, now at nearly 190,000 acres, proving deadly.
Under a dark orange midday sky, they started evacuating the town of Estes Park. Less than 12 miles away, the Cameron Peak fire also burning. It's the largest in state history.
Go! Go!
The Calwood fire also forcing families to make dramatic escapes. 7 fires now scorching the state, burning more than 375,000 acres.
A wildfire crisis unlike anything residents in the Rocky Mountain state have ever seen.
Never in the American West has so much burned so quickly. Bone-dry humidity and powerful winds. From Washington State to Southern California, entire communities were wiped out.
In the last 20 years, we've experienced twice the number of weather disasters as we did in the previous 20 years.
Smoke from the dozens of major wildfires mushroomed into thick blankets of clouds so vast they could be seen. It's hard to fathom that the worst may be yet to come.
A city in chaos. Across Lagos, buildings have been torched and sporadic clashes have erupted. This is what sparked the outcry. Soldiers shooting unarmed protesters in the country's largest city.
They are shooting at us! They are shooting!
Nigeria's been a dictatorship for almost half of its life as an independent nation. Many of its citizens worry Tuesday's events echo the dark days of military rule, and they're determined to make sure that doesn't happen.
Chile is a country used to earthquakes, but few people expected the shake-up that we've seen this past year. In just 12 months, Chile went from being an oasis of stability, as its president described it, to a country wanting to rewrite the rules. It all started when Santiago hiked its metro ticket prices by just 4 cents. It represented the tipping point, unleashing anger and resentment among millions struggling to make ends meet in a country that on the surface looked like it was succeeding. The demonstrations were largely peaceful, but clashes with protesters and heavy-handed responses by the authorities have marked this past year too. After a pause in protesting because of COVID-19, people have returned to the streets. Peaceful protests like this, and more troubling ones like this. Tension is high in Chile, and so are expectations.
In Beirut, demonstrations have taken place to commemorate the first anniversary of a mass protest movement demanding political reform in Lebanon.
1 year since the protests began in Lebanon. 1 year of rising and fading hopes. People came from different backgrounds and sects, commemorating a pivotal moment in Lebanon's modern history. A moment when the Lebanese people pushed for change, but were faced with devastating economic, health and security challenges. As they continue their march, they raise their voice with anger. Anger of a corrupt and impotent government who not only made the country poorer, but failed to protect lives.